The Heat played a ferocious second half on Friday night versus the Knicks, but that was part of the problem, having to mount an incredible comeback from being down 17 points. A Tyler Herro layup put Miami up one with just over 20 seconds left, but an impossible Julius Randle shot from three sealed the win for New York with a second left to play, sending Miami to their sixth loss in 7 games. We break down the game, talk about obnoxious Knicks fans, and answer your questions on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're watching or listening. Recording this from Miami-Dade Arena after a brutal Heat loss to the Knicks, 122 to 120 after Julius Randle hit an impossible shot with a second left to win it. Before that, the Heat trailed by as many as 17 points after another bad second quarter, but they battled back in the second half, outscoring the Knicks 65 to 51 in the second half. And right before Randle's game winner, Tyler Herro made what should have been the game-winning play when he stole the ball from Julius Randle and scored at the other end to put the Heat up by 1 with 23 seconds left in the game. But then the impossible Randle shot that you mentioned, Jimmy Butler knocking the ball away twice, Randle somehow getting the ball back, spinning around, making that impossible three-pointer to win the game. A brutal, brutal way to end the game. Still, we do have blame pie to hand out, as we do after every single loss. And we do have your listener questions that we'll get to here in a minute. But as heartbreaking as this one was, as brutal as this one was, that was an intense second half. There was a playoff atmosphere, like a real one, where it just felt like every possession mattered. Yep. Every defensive possession held so much weight to it. Every shot. There was that Caleb Martin 3 with like 5.5 minutes left that finally put the Heat back up. It was their first lead since the first quarter. Caleb Martin takes that wing 3, and as it's going in, he's like when I'm Bull, and you send her bend over hoping to hit some pins. Yeah, and he starts bending over at the waist and just like willing that 3 to go in, and it does. And then the Heat take a 1-point lead, and then it just goes back and back and back and forth. That said, I think the Heat played really well in the second half. Yeah, they played well enough they should have won this game. They should have won this game. That shot by Julius Randle at the end was bananas, all right? They should have won this game. Am I crazy? Do I think that the Heat can kind of build on this?
Yes. Okay. Yes, you're crazy. Look, I think part of it is coming off of that really demoralizing loss, the fact that it's their 6th loss in 7 games, that this is a repeating pattern of them struggling in one way or another, either defensively or offensively. They haven't been able to tie it all together. That second half was as good a half of basketball as we've seen from this team, and a lot of it was because they were getting that kind of offensive output that you expect from this group, at least when they're playing to their capacity. Yeah, defensively it was phenomenal, like you said, the possessions, the intensity, the energy. I was very surprised that they were able to bring this level of intensity and energy during that second half, because I thought it was going to be coasting to a 30-point blowout from the Knicks side of things. Give credit to Miami that they were able to mount that comeback, but they had to work so hard for it every possession, trying to force a turnover from Julius Randle or a bad shot from Jalen Brunson. It just seemed like they had to work so hard just to get to that point. Is it something they can build off of? No, because this is who they are all season. They just have been having to work for every possession, every game, in order just to give themselves any kind of chance at victory. I don't know. It maybe would feel a lot different if this was, this was a tight game, a really fun game to be here and cover. A lot of energy in the crowd because of this 90% split Knicks fans that we'll talk about a little later. But again, coming off of this whole area, this grouping of games here where they've lost so many consecutively, or not consecutively, but in 6 out of the last 7. Right. I don't know how you can feel like you can build off of this.
If Julius Randle doesn't hit that shot, the Heat win, and now you're building off of it. Maybe. So it's just the difference is that Julius Randle hits this impossible miracle shot versus not. And look, I get it. Like, at the end of the day, wins, you need to win games. And right now the Heat are 33-31, and like you said, they've lost 6 of the last 7. I just think that this game was so much different than that Philly one. Like that Philly game was demoralizing. That loss against a 76ers team without Joel Embiid on Wednesday. It's demoralizing. And you and I were talking in like the little media dining area before the game here, and I said this is the kind of game that the Miami Heat, like historically, win. You have a bad regular season loss. You are embarrassed on your home floor. The Knicks are coming into town, red hot. The red hot Knicks. We saw this with Linsanity. The Heat ended Linsanity, right? Like, this is what the Heat do. He's like, we're feeling terrible ourselves. You're feeling great about yourselves. We're going to drag you down to where we're at. That's what we do because we're the Miami Heat. And I said, if they can do that, then I feel better about where the Miami Heat are at. But if they come out and just bleep the bed like they did against the Sixers, and then I told you, I was like, if this happens, I'm going to be really worried. That did not happen tonight. The second quarter was rough. It was really, really bad. Apparently, Ron Rothstein went off on the defense during the halftime show on Bally Sports.
Good for you, Ronnie.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Barry Jackson tweeted, he's like, once you've lost Ron Rothstein, you've lost the country. Yeah. And I actually didn't even know like being that critical was allowed on the network, but who knows? And it was bad. Like the second quarter defense was really, really bad. But they bounced back in that second half in a big way, and I think that that's something to feel good about if you're the Heat. I don't know. I can't
give credit to the Knicks too, right? This is their 8th straight win. It's not like this is an aberration.
No, they're awesome.
They've been playing well. I don't know. Awesome.
No, they are awesome.
They looked awesome today, at least in the first half.
They've looked awesome for the last 7 games before this one too.
Yeah, they've been very, very, very good. They're definitely
hottest team in the NBA behind Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take anything away from them. They are absolutely deserving. They're absolutely deserving of any kind of credit for tonight's game. Having said that, Miami did the best they could in the second half, but it was too little too late. I just, to your point, these are typically the games that they would have gotten up for. If that's the case, then why get down 17 in the first place?
No, that's the thing that I keep coming back to is that second quarter was so bad. They were not guarding the ball well enough. They made adjustments. We know what the Knicks want to do, right? They want to get isolation possessions with either Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson. And Julius Randle went off for 43 points tonight, and Jalen Brunson had a pretty good game with 25 points on 14 shots. That's what the Knicks do. Like, they're not complicated. They run a pretty simple offense, and I don't even mean that in any sort of critical way. They don't need to run a whole lot because Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle have been so good for them this year. Yeah. And because the Heat knew what was coming, they were like, all right, we're gonna show on these screens. We're gonna hedge really hard. We're gonna kick out, if it's Tyler Herro or somebody else that we don't really want in that matchup. Our better defender is gonna come over, kick that defender out. And they were doing that in the first quarter, and then they just got away from it kind of at the end of the first quarter and basically all throughout the second quarter when they got outscored 34-25. And so, yeah, I mean, I can feel good about the second half, but the second quarter was so bad, just like it was against the Sixers, because that Sixers game was lost in the second quarter too. It wasn't as bad as that Sixers one, but it was still really bad. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, you mentioned tale of two halves. Should I believe the first half more or the second half more? The other thing too, though, is I don't know about you, but the Knicks, I want to talk about the Knicks a little bit. That first half it seemed to me like watching an SEC team play like a Conference USA team in football, where you're just like, oh, this team is just bigger, faster, stronger, more athletic than this other team. Like, whatever you do execution-wise, you could drop the best game plan, get as many open corner threes, like whatever you want to try to do. You're just not as big, strong, fast as this other team. And the Knicks felt like Georgia, and the Miami Heat felt like UAB in that first half.
Okay, I'll take your word for it on those references, but I understand what you're saying though. Like Randle bullied his way to so many of those good looks, and he's definitely taken his game to a whole other level this year. What was a combination of physicality and some skill didn't always translate in years past. This season, he's been able to dial it up to a whole other level, and you could see that in tonight's matchup. Like, even when Bam Adebayo was guarding him, there were moments there where he just looked like the more physical, more powerful presence, and they were getting a lot of those contributions from other players as well, slashing to the rim or you're stepping back for threes. I get it, and that's part of the problem, right? Is that in following last game, Eric Spoelstra talked about having to flip the switch.
Yeah.
He said, you know what, the switch has to be flipped in that locker room. That's how we're going to start winning games. It didn't happen until the second half tonight.
That's what I'm talking about. Is now the flip switch better late than never, I guess.
But this team isn't good enough. Like that, you can flip the switch when you're the big three, when you've got LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
Then you can wait until 5 minutes. If you're the Golden State Warriors of the past 7 seasons, then you can flip a switch. This team isn't good enough to just flip a switch. They had to flip a switch in the second half because they were down 17 points. Like at that point, you've got to do something in order to make it competitive, but you just can't wait that long in order to do so. And you have to get better performances from everybody. In the first half, their bench was horrific. In their second half, at least they were getting some defensive contributions from Gabe Vincent and Victor Oladipo, a couple buckets here and there, but for the most part, they just were non-factors. It's just too inconsistent. You're not talented enough. You're not, to your point, athletic or explosive enough to hang with these teams right now. I never thought we'd get to the point after the last couple of years where the Heat were the worst team in comparison to the New York Knicks, but here we are. The Knicks are clearly a better team than Miami.
And they're led by Julius Randle, who scored 43 points tonight. Who's to blame for Julius Randle going off for 43 points? We'll tell you who that is next. But first, David, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan, specifically Nissan's most electric player of the week, brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. Now that we finally figured out how to pronounce it. Look, the player of the week, not a lot of options out there, but I think between a big game from Tyler Herro tonight, but some inconsistency throughout the week, Bam's played on and off, okay, occasionally. I think he's had some solid moments, but nobody better than Jimmy Butler. Trying to carry his team single-handedly in the first win against the Philadelphia 76ers. A monster second half for him against today's New York Knicks. Just a great performance from him. I don't think you can take that away from him. He's been absolutely just competitive as you can possibly.
23 points in that game. The first game against the Sixers, 16 in that second game, and then he had 33 points in 33 minutes tonight. Got to the line 20 times, 18 of 20 from the free throw line. That was old school Jimmy, man. Like that was.
I don't want to touch the free throws, but his performance otherwise was electric, just like the Nissan Ariya. Brilliantly fierce. The lines on his car are beautiful. It's a wonderful design, fiercely elegant. I don't know if you would. I think he would qualify himself as fiercely elegant.
Maybe when he had the dreadlocks.
Stunningly powerful. That seems like Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
That seems like something he would use to describe himself. But the car is a combination of fierceness and elegance, just like Jimmy Butler. Beautiful but strong. The perfect SUV crossover. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence in all-in-one EV. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com.
Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. Locked on Heat is also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please do subscribe. Well, David, that smelly smell you smell is the smell of not this coach's locker room after a Knicks game, but it's a smelly loss. It's time to hand out some blame pie. You and I were kind of having this conversation before. Given the nature of this game, we kind of felt like it might be a little difficult to hand out blame pie. But to go back to what I teased going into that break, Julius Randle going on for 43 points, 16 of 25 shots for him, 18 of 13 from three-point range, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. He was awesome. I mean, and I don't know that. I know that people want to rush and say, well, Bam Adebayo, that's your matchup. Like, why aren't you? Jimmy Butler was on Julius Randle in the second half. Like, what, should he have done a better job? Who should have done a better job? But I look at those shots that he was making, and I'm just like, those are just hard. And Julius Randle's been playing at an all-star level all season. So this isn't some like random scrub heat killer situation. This is Julius Randle, who is a borderline all-NBA guy with the way that he's been playing this year.
No doubt.
And he just made really good shots. I don't know if I'm ready to go ahead and blame anybody. I also haven't watched the film after this. We're recording this right after the game. I don't have the matchup data in front of me to really see if Bam Adebayo really messed up. But I don't know, just watching it live here at the arena, I thought Bam did a really good job contesting and guarding Julius Randle, but he just made some really, really tough shots.
Yeah, I think on a lot of those three-pointers, it wasn't really Bam who was guarding him, mostly on switches. At least that was what the feeling I got in the first. Again, to your point, watching that performance from Randle makes me want to go and watch the film because I'm so curious to see exactly who it was that was being toasted defensively, or whether or not it was just a matter of Randle, like you said, hitting really tough shots. He was draining him from three-point range, like feet behind the line. Yeah, this is an incredible.
He's got this like turnaround fadeaway thing that, and he hit that one high arcing shot off the glass, like that layup over Bam, and it was just. Yeah. And I guess this high arcing thing is a thing. Fred Katz, who covers the Knicks for The Athletic, wrote a whole story on just Julius Randle's high arcing layup off the glass shot. So he's got like a bag, and he got into that bag tonight. So I don't know. Maybe somebody does deserve blame, but I don't know who it is.
So. I'm willing to go so far as to say no, because I think between Bam and Jimmy, they were contesting. Jimmy, look, you brought up the point earlier, and I think it's a really good one. They changed the coverage on Randle in the second half, pressuring him a little differently, hedging and things of that sort. And that was the right call. That was probably.
I don't think it was because Bam was doing a bad job. I think Julius Randle has played to the point this season where he's one of these guys. You ask coaches, okay, how do you guard X great scorer? And they say you just got to show him different looks. I think that's what they were doing. They were showing Julius Randle different looks. We're going to show you Jimmy. We're going to show you Bam. We're going to switch. We're going to kick out guys. We're going to double you in the post. We're going to do these things. And I think that Jimmy Butler taking on that assignment late in the game while Bam Adebayo was covering the centers was also part of the other part of this too, is that Kevin Love was guarding those centers. Kevin Love wasn't in at the end of the game. He's not part of the closing lineup. So they're undersized because they have Caleb Martin back at the 4 to close games. So who you need, people saying that they kicked Bam off of Julius Randle and put Jimmy on him because Bam was doing a bad job. Yeah, that's not how that scheme works. That's not how basketball works. You needed somebody to guard Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein at the end when they went small. And so that was Bam's job. And then Bam obviously is part of the defensive scheme when they switch, when they try to bring those guys into pick and roll with Jalen Brunson. And then you have Bam able to guard and slide with Jalen Brunson on the perimeter. So whatever. I don't know that Bam or Jimmy deserve any blame pie tonight, at least in regards to guarding Julius Randle. I'll tell you who does deserve some blame pie, though. And it's getting to the point where the Heat need more from these guys, and they're not giving them what they need. Yeah. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, and even Victor Oladipo, despite Oladipo being in for most of the closing minutes of that game. Max Strus went 1 of 2 from three-point range. It's like, 50%. That's not that bad. You need to take more than 2 3-pointers. Like, you didn't get him up enough in nearly 19 minutes. So Strus was taken out of the game. He was a non-factor. He was a minus 15, worst on the team. The bench lost the game for the Heat tonight. The starting lineup was actually a positive. Jimmy Butler was a plus 18. Kevin Love was a plus 13. Bam was a plus 4. Even Gabe was a plus 2 in his limited minutes. Everybody except for Julius Randle was a negative in the Knicks starting lineup, and Julius Randle was only a plus 1. Plus minus doesn't tell the whole story, but it was the bench for the Knicks that won the game for them. That was the biggest difference. I think the Knicks entered the game with the 3rd best bench in the league by net rating, and Miami was 28th or 26th
short bench
or something like that.
Surprisingly,
they have a 9 that they feel really good about.
They got some good minutes from Josh Hart. He was a little inconsistent as far as the scoring is concerned. He only finished with 5 points.
But a plus 16. He's just one of those. Josh Hart feels like he could be in a Miami Heat uniform really easily.
I don't want to go there. Yeah, but yeah, certainly a nice Villanova connection. Emmanuel Quickly had a nice game off the bench as well. He was hitting some shots from deep.
Yeah, that third quarter from Quickly was huge.
The point about Strus, Oladipo, and Gabe, yes, it's worth bringing up because
they got outplayed by those guys.
You get a monster performance, or at least a really, really damn good, if not to the same level as Julius Randle, 33 points from Jimmy and 20 trips to the free throw line. That should be enough to win you a game. The fact that you also get 18 points from Bam Adebayo, almost all of those in the second half, and then 29 are really huge. We should talk about that. A bounce back game from Tyler Herro after he really struggled against the Sixers the night before. He was sensational in the second
13 points in the third quarter for Tyler, 10 for Bam in that third quarter.
They were both really big. They came out and electrified Miami, really propelled them almost single-handedly along with Jimmy's defense. Then Jimmy started getting down to the line a lot more often, etc. But then it was the bench. The players surrounding them have to be a little bit more productive. You just can't get nothing out of these guys. Like Cody Zeller with 3 points, 6 for Oladipo, and that was, one of those was a 2 of 4 from 3-point range. So 2 really big shots from 3. But even before that, you were texting me like, I'm kind of done with the whole Victor Oladipo experience. And then he unexpectedly hits a 3, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm back.
Never you hit 2 threes.
He brings the energy defensively, but there are moments there where he just doesn't seem like he's in sync with everybody else. Too many gambles.
Victor Oladipo plays offense like he's never read the playbook. And I'm not accusing him of not reading the playbook. It's just he's
freelancing.
He freelances a lot. Bam will come up and set a screen, and you're like, all right, you come around this screen, and then you drive and you kick to Strus or Caleb or Gabe or whatever, and Victor just doesn't wait for Bam to set the screen. He just starts taking off towards the basket, and you're like, what are you doing? Oh, you're turning the ball over. I guess that's what you're doing. There's too many of those possessions for me to feel comfortable with Victor Oladipo. And that kind of gets us to another conversation I wanted to have with you really quick is I think we learned in what the Heat want to do with this closing lineup. They're going to start with Kevin Love, but they're not going to close with Kevin Love at the 4, right? They're gonna shift small to close games, and I actually like that look for them. I like that optionality that they have with those lineups. But I think that Spo trusts 4 guys on this team. I think it's Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, Caleb. Those are the 4 players that he trusts.
That's fair.
I don't know who the 5th player is. Gabe Vincent used to be that player. He was not tonight and has not been for the last several games.
Used to be that player.
Kyle Lowry used to be that player. He is clearly not involved anymore. Victor Oladipo was the guy tonight, and I think that was just by default. I don't know where else he was supposed to go. I don't think I trust Victor Oladipo because of this freelancing stuff on offense that we just talked about. Max Strus is not taking shots, and when he's not making and taking those shots, he's not like a factor. He's not good defensively. He's not a playmaker. He doesn't really punish you by putting the ball on the ground. Like, you're not going big, so you take out Kevin Love and Cody Zeller. I don't know who the 5th guy is.
There isn't a 5th guy. There really isn't. It's like the hope is maybe that Kyle will bounce back to health and maybe he can be a pseudo, like a 4B or something along those lines. I don't know. Maybe like a
5th guy. I mean, the Knicks. It feels like the Knicks have like 6 5th guys.
That is something. Yeah, we were talking about that in the media room before the game starts, like talking about the talent disparity between Miami and New York. Miami has, and maybe it's not by all that much anymore. Their 2 best players in Jimmy and Bam are probably better than New York's 2 best players in Randle and Brunson.
Yeah,
but it's not that huge a disparity. The problem is 3 through 8 on the New York side of things is much greater than anybody that Miami has on their roster. Like, I mean, Tyler Herro had a big game tonight, but I don't know that you can even count on that kind of sort of inconsistency from him versus like an RJ Barrett or somebody else in that roster. It's the talent disparity is a problem, I'd say. But
well, we haven't really handed out the slices yet. I still think we need to talk about Kevin Love and what happened at the end of the game. We'll do that here in the next segment. But first, David, tell the listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Built. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, you've got to try Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. I know a lot of people are trying to eat a little healthier to start off the year. Well, you've got to try Built, because with Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious. You won't even think they're good for you, but they're perfect for your New Year's resolution or just eating healthy in general. What makes them so good? They're 100% covered in chocolate, real chocolate, and they come with unbelievable flavors. You can get them at Sam's Club or Walmart, and of course, you can always get them at Built.com. You can order a box of all your delicious flavors there. Pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puffs. Go to Built.com, get a box today.
Reach Locked On Heat on Twitter, Instagram, email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. All right, so to put a bow on the whole Blame Pie segment, we do need to talk about Kevin Love. I actually thought this was, I don't know if this was his best game since, you think it was?
I think it was, actually, yeah.
He was big in the paint. He had a number of putbacks. He had that great pass. I forget who it was that he hit with that outlet pass. Or he tried it, was it Jimmy Butler? I can't remember. Another outlet pass tonight for Kevin Love. But I thought his spacing was really important, even though he only went 1 of 3 from 3-point range. He missed a couple of shots, but yeah, I thought he kind of, it felt like his floor game was the best that it's been, and that's just something that we've been talking about is, okay, as he gets more and more comfortable, he gets more acclimated, what's he start to look like when he really figures out what the Heat are trying to do on both ends? And I think tonight he just looked like he knew what was happening better than he had before, which is to be expected, but not
so fast.
The inbound at the end. So Julius Randle hits the impossible miracle shot for the Knicks.
What a sequence.
And there's a second left, 1.1 seconds left. At first there was 0.7. The refs go look and they, okay, put 1.1 on the clock. They do. And Kevin Love is not in the game at that point for the last several minutes. And then Spo decides, I'm going to put Kevin Love in to inbound it. That's something that we were looking at when they first signed Kevin Love. It was something I was thinking about, like, oh, this kind of gives the Heat a real legit inbounder. Kevin Love is tall, high basketball IQ, great passer. The Heat have had a really hard time getting inbounds in this entire season. And so to have a new inbounder, I thought was really useful. So that's what Spo does. He's like, okay, this is our new inbounder. Let's put Kevin Love in the game, make this happen. They try to run what looked like that play that they ran at the end of that Houston game. And that's been one of Spo's favorite ATOs. I know the famous one was when Jimmy Butler got the wide open layup against Houston, but he's actually run variations of that play a couple of different times. Our friend of the program, Mo Dakil, actually broke this down on Twitter the other day, but they run, it's sort of like this elevator doors set where you got your shooters closing those doors, another guy coming through, and then Jimmy Butler. So you've got one shooter coming through, obviously coming up above the three-point arc, and then Jimmy Butler trying to slash towards the basket. So you're basically pulling the defense apart at the seams. And it felt like Kevin Love knew what the play was, but it didn't. But the Knicks did a good job defending it. They had scouted it. I was actually a little surprised Spo went with it so quickly after the last time he just used it.
Yeah.
And Kevin Love just tried to force it into Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler never even really touched it, and then the game was over because there was only 1 second left on the clock. The only way for that shot that to work, I think, was to get Jimmy on the lob there. That's what if you hit the shooter on the other end, which is the other option, I don't know that there's enough time to get off that. Maybe there is, but given that the shooter is running away from the basket on that play, I don't know. So I think the Knicks knew that. They knew that they were going to go to Jimmy because there was only enough time to go to Jimmy on that. They were in front of it. They blocked it. Kevin Love still threw it. Do you think he deserves blame for that? Because we also have a question, like, should he have called a timeout?
He should have called a timeout. He does deserve a little blame on it. I'm also a little surprised that the play went to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Like given Tyler's hot hand in the fourth quarter and his shooting ability tonight, he should have gotten the last shot.
Yeah.
And I know that's impossible, and I know Jimmy's never going to allow that, really. But I think it's a call that you're supposed to.
Well, Jimmy will allow it. We've seen it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm a little surprised that Spo drew it up the way he did for Jimmy to get that shot.
So I'm watching it now. I took the video. Yeah, so Tyler is the other option, but he's running away. Like that's the thing. Like that's the scheme. I almost feel like that's not the right play call because you're going from two options to one based on how much time is left on the clock. Kevin Love should have called the timeout when it was clear that
undoubtedly
you could try the Jimmy lob. Maybe the Knicks aren't ready for it. I think that you got to respect the Tom Thibodeau coach team a little bit more than that. But whatever. That's your pet play. Go for it. Yeah. And maybe that was Spo's idea. It's like, hey, if that's not there immediately, just call the timeout. And then Kevin Love didn't call the timeout. Kevin regretted it immediately. It was like a quarterback going back, throwing a pass, and then immediately starting to run after his own interception because he knows he's gonna have to make a tackle on that play.
Sure.
Kevin Love threw that pass and immediately put his hands over his head. He knew he made the wrong pass immediately as soon as it left his hands. I think he deserves a slice. I think that's fair. I thought it was a good Kevin Love game. I hate giving him this slice, but that was tough. So I think he gets a slice, and then I think we can do, what do we got? Vic, Strus, Gabe.
3 apiece.
3 apiece. Boom. All right. Let's go to our next question. Timmy writes in, why don't the Heat play defense in the first half like they do in the second half? What do you think?
I think it's an effort thing, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of energy expended that way for a team that does lack athleticism, that does lack size, that plays small. And when it's their most effective defensive lineup, that's difficult to do. Jimmy Butler is giving up 40 pounds on Julius Randle, at least. Yeah. I mean, and that's a very strong physical player in Jimmy Butler. We should add, by the way, he doesn't even know if he's going to wake up in the morning. This was according to Jimmy Butler, so I wouldn't count on him.
Such a ridiculous answer.
I wouldn't count on him.
Anthony asks him, hey, are you going to play tomorrow? You've been sort of careful with these back-to-backs. And Jimmy just goes, I don't even know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow. That's just my mindset, man. Really, I'm in the back of the media room, and I just laughed. Yeah. I was just like, it's funny. That's not an answer.
I still wouldn't count on him being in tomorrow's game against the Hawks, but we'll see how it plays out. Either way, like he's giving up a lot of size to Randle. Even Bam getting outclassed by Mitchell Robinson as far as the size differential. Brunson is a physical player. He's undersized and short, but he's physical. He's bulky. He's like a little bowling ball in there, and he draws a lot of fouls. So that's a lot of effort to expend over the course of 48 minutes. It's not an excuse. I know a lot of fans don't want to hear that, but if you want this team to play at their best level, it takes an incredible amount of effort, and it's unsustainable for 48 minutes.
The Knicks are the Knicks entered as the SEC team, and the Heat were the Conference USA team. And to ask that Conference USA team to go for 4 quarters, like if it wasn't the second quarter, maybe it was going to be the third quarter. If it wasn't the third quarter, maybe it would have been the fourth quarter. Like I don't know that it's just like. I actually thought their energy in the first quarter was really good. Like defensively, I was like, oh, they're doing really interesting things. The Knicks went up. The Knicks went up, but I thought they were like the Knicks were shooting 63%, and I didn't think it was like there was some questionable defensive possessions, but I thought the Knicks were just making shots in that first quarter. I left that out of the first quarter. I felt kind of good where the Heat were at. I was like, okay, the Knicks will cool off, the Heat will get hot, and we got a game here.
It was that crossover between the first and second quarter too, right? Where Julius Randle hit 2 threes. I think he hit a 2 before that. 2 3-pointers, a Brunson 2 and then another Randle 2, and that's what kind of really helped kind of push that lead.
Yeah. And then a couple of Spo things too. He got a lot of flack after that Sixers game for playing that lineup without Jimmy or Bam in that second quarter. That was so bad that lost the game for them against the Sixers. We saw that again in the second quarter tonight, and the Heat lost that second quarter 34-25. And I was a little surprised that we saw that again. But Spo remedied that in the second half. We didn't see any minutes without Jimmy or Bam. There was Bam was in at the end of the third quarter, and then to start the fourth quarter. Then Jimmy and Tyler both came in. Bam played like 1 or 2 possessions with Jimmy. Bam subbed out. Cody Zeller came in for a couple of minutes. Bam got his breath, came back in, and then all 3 of them played for the rest of the game. So I would like to – I think going forward, Spo, I don't think that he can afford to keep Jimmy or Bam off the court. You can only have so many minutes. I'm not one of these people that says you got to play Jimmy and Bam the entire fourth quarter because they got to rest at some point in the game, right? And having them both on the court has been like – they're like – the Heat are like plus 13 per 100 possessions when both of them are on the court. So I understand that Bam or Spo wanting to keep them both on the court as much as possible because the Heat are dominant when they're both on the floor, and they're just sort of above average when it's just one without the other. So I think that's been the logic, but you still got to find a way to minimize those minutes. It can't be like 4 or 5 minute stretches without either of them on the court, and that's tough. It might just require Jimmy and Bam playing out more minutes than they're already playing.
You tweeted something at one point about it was evident how much Miami wanted to win this game.
Yeah.
Do you think that they've kind of shot their wad at this point where they're just like they might not have anything left to build off of?
Not yet. But if this homestand goes poorly, then yes. Like there is an understanding in that locker room among the players, among the coaching staff, that this homestand is the entire season.
Make or break it, yeah.
They're 0-2 on this homestand right now.
Going into demoralizing loss, and then another one where you expend all this incredible energy in the second half
on the first night of a back-to-back set,
just to get killed by an incredible shot by Julius.
So tomorrow's game against Atlanta ain't going to be easy.
No.
And yeah, so this is tough. And look, I don't think he can lose another game on this homestand. Like even 500 feels like a little bit of a disappointment when you have 6 games in a row on your home court. This was almost a road game for Miami based on how many people in the stands were Knicks fans. Can we talk about that really quick?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So right in front of Media Row, I just want to take our listeners in here. Right in front of Media Row were 2 Knicks fans. And I was watching them because they were right in front of me, blocking my view to the game for most of the game. It was 1 Knicks fan on the left, 1 Knicks fan on the right. The Knicks fan on the left from the opening tip was super obnoxious New York Knicks fan. And then the one on the right about in the second half, started following what the Knicks fan. They didn't come here together.
No.
I think they might have left together. I don't know. Like they were so obnoxious, like literally dancing after every shot, complaining at the top of the lower bowl, like right in front of where we sit as media, top of the lower bowl, screaming at the refs, like, "Yo, Knicks fans, refs can't hear you from the top of the lower bowl. That's pointless. What are you doing?" So obnoxious. It was like 80% Knicks fans tonight. I'm not going to say that that's a failure on Miami fans. I'm not. Because when I went to the game at Madison Square Garden when the Heat played the Knicks, and it was a ton of Heat fans there too, and a Let's Go Heat fan broke out at MSG. It's just Miami and New York are just like they just trade fan bases. They share arenas. Like it's Miami and New York. You might as well put a bullet train in between them. Like they share fan bases. They share arenas. I'm not worried about it. But man, these Knicks fans tonight, they were really obnoxious. They feel really good.
Throws,
yeah.
Like Heat
free throws. They feel so good about their team. It's like nauseating.
It is. It was really difficult to watch. They haven't had a lot to cheer for or root for over the last decade.
I liked it better that way.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Where it's like, oh, you're just talking, but it's quiet little noise. You don't really have much of a team to root for. But this year they actually have a pretty good team. And they're feeling pretty cocky. They're feeling themselves in a way that they absolutely should not.
It's annoying.
It is. It was.
And when Tyler Herro made that, Tyler Herro, that was like Dwayne Wade-esque against Chicago. Like when he got the steal, and then like Dwayne Wade dunked it at the end, and like Tyler Herro doesn't dunk, but it's like I was like, he got that steal, he played it. Spo, there's so much I want to get into with that. Like Spo called him Steph Curry like, and you know that speaks to me in terms of his defense, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, let's make that distinction pretty clearly.
And I thought that was a really interesting point, and you know that speaks to me because the thing about Steph is
not a good defender.
Not a good defender, but
defensive plays.
Yeah, super smart, knows where to be, tries hard. There's a recognition thing with Steph that he knows exactly what the opponent wants to do, and the opponent's always going to want to drag him into the action and then try to punish him with a bigger player. And he just works his tail off to make that as hard as possible. Is it going to work every time? No. Is a 6'8" guy going to shoot over Steph every once in a while? 100%. That's going to happen every single game. It's going to happen to Tyler. Tyler tonight said, I'm never going to be a lockdown defender, but I'm going to just try my hardest.
Incredible self-admission from him there.
He's not going to be. And I love that. And it just feels to me like I would bet that the Heat coaching staff actually showed film of Steph to Tyler. And I think one of the things that also Steph is underrated, really quick hands and active hands. Hands are always spread apart, always in a defensive stance. And you're seeing that now with Tyler. Defensive stance, hands spread out. He got skinny over that screen to fight over it and then stole the ball from Julius Randle. And Julius Randle was like shocked that Tyler Herro was even involved in that defensive play that aggressively. Because usually you have a player try to hide himself or you have another teammate come and kick you out and help you out there. I don't think Julius Randle was expecting Tyler to get aggressive in that instance. And that's the same thing that Steph does. And Steph has turned himself into an above average defender at that position. And I think Tyler can do that too. I really do. And I would bet that that's what the Heat coach's messaging is to him. It's like, hey, you're never going to be locked down. You're never going to be like Marcus Smart out there, but just compete really hard, try really hard. And I think that by putting Kevin Love in the starting lineup, it was a little bit more of a challenge to him too. It's like, we can't have two negative defenders out there. So you guys step it up even more.
That's an interesting point. I mean, we haven't really asked him about it. Just again, that self-admission from him being able to recognize that he has to try better on the defensive end. Look, we kind of I personally skewed him a little bit last game because he did struggle so much offensively. He was trying to shoot his way out of it, but he had a bad game. And he has that bounce back game today. He wasn't the problem.
He had a great game.
There were other players who were. And again, I think the overall takeaway from this is just that you're not good enough as a team to just rely on that switch being flipped. You played so well in the second half and you were so dominant against this team, the New York Knicks, but it just kind of it underscores how important it is for you to play even more effectively in that first half. You can't build that lead out. We were talking about that. You're not a good enough three-point shooting team so that you can just rely on a three-point shot to save you, because then that puts more pressure on shooters that have struggled all season long. Imagine getting down 15, 17 points as they were today and then asking Max Strus or somebody else, hey, guess what? You got to go 3 of 5 from three-point range. It's more of a challenge for them.
They got back to their formula, right? They didn't get more possessions than the Knicks tonight, but they got to the free throw line 32 times, 32 free throw attempts, I should say. They turned the ball. They turned over the Knicks, 12 Knicks turnovers for 24 Heat points. They outscored the Knicks in the paint by 2. Like, that's the formula. They're not going to outshoot teams. We know that. They got to try to create more possessions. They got to try to create more turnovers. And they got to do more of this. Jimmy Butler, 33 points tonight. A little bit more playoff Jimmy we saw tonight. A lot more engaged, firing it up by the crowd, firing up the crowd. Yeah. I think that to me is more than anything. If you can get Jimmy and Tyler back on track, and Bam's just been he's been a little bit of a slump lately, but mostly a rock all season.
Second half.
Then you can start. Then maybe you could start putting together some wins here. But the Heat will play the Hawks Saturday night. We won't have a post-game show for you then. We'll be back on Monday. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as our new episodes go up. That's it. Have a great weekend.